Member from Parkdale High Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's indeed a pleasure and an honour to rise today. The first people I want to thank are the first responders themselves, because without their support from day one on this bill would not have become a reality. And I want to thank them for what they do for us every single day. Police, fire, corrections, paramedics, thank you all, and you deserve a round of applause. When I think about the life of this bill, its early iterations as my bill and later as a government bill, I also want to thank everyone in this House, all of my colleagues, for making this a possibility. It's a rare, nonpartisan moment when we can celebrate something like this, and I think we should. I think of also a couple of faces that come to mind. First and foremost, a young paramedic named Shannon Bertrand, who walked into my office 8 years ago. And she was the one that confided in me her troubles and her troubles getting coverage with WSIB, which is where this all started. Paramedics got behind it, police got behind it, fire got behind it, corrections got behind it, and I'm going to talk about the other groups that got behind it too. The very first iteration of this bill said all workers. That's what it said. It was very clear the government would not back that, it would not pass that, so we narrowed it down to those who are the obvious ones, the first responders, and you heard the leader of the official opposition talking about who those groups are and their high rates of post-traumatic stress disorder. The other person I think about, and I will never get this memory out of my mind, is the suicide call that we received in my Queen's Park office. It was a suicide distress call from a firefighter. Said, please don't call first responders, because he knew what it was like to be a first responder and go to a suicide call. He didn't want his brothers and sisters having to do what he had to do that brought on his own post-traumatic stress disorder. Of course, as responsible citizens, we couldn't do anything but. We phoned the first responders to go to the house of a first responder to prevent that suicide. So I think of him. He will be unnamed, but I think of him, and I send my prayers and love out to him and his family. A couple of things. In the committee hearings on this bill, we would have liked, Mr. Speaker, to have seen some broadening of the scope. Here was a historic opportunity, and not that this isn't, and we celebrate this passage, but I want to let everyone know that in the New Democratic Party, we're not going to rest at this. We're going to continue to fight until nurses are covered by this, until special constables are covered by this, until bailiffs and parole officers and anyone else who suffers from post-traumatic stress disorder on their job. And that truly is where we should be going in the future. The other aspect of this bill we would have liked to have seen differently was the coverage period itself. 24 months, not time enough. It should have been 5 years. So again, that's something that we hope to see in regulation down the years from now. The other one that's particularly egregious, I think, is that anybody who has had a claim rejected by WSIB for PTSD cannot reopen that claim. I think that's sad. That's a truly missed opportunity, Mr. Speaker, because many of the people whose stories brought us to this place had claims rejected by WSIB. Those are the heroes. Those are the heroes that we should be celebrating today, and the fact that they are written out of this bill is a lack. It's a sad thing. So again, on their behalf, and many of them are quite angry about that, I must say, and with good reason, again, we'll keep fighting on in the New Democratic Party until they also are covered and given the dignity that they deserve. Again, hopefully through regulation in the years to come. We want to see that day come as well. In terms of prevention and what we do moving forward, Constable Guardia, who committed suicide, his sister was in my office, had great ideas. So rest assured, all first responders, we're not stopping here, because from here on out we will be working, and with the Minister of Labour, we will be working on what those regulations look like, what the protocols should look like to prevent PTSD, to help those with PTSD. In the wake of a traumatic incident, what do you do with folk who've been part of that? That's a huge piece of work, and we in the New Democratic Party are not going to stop until that work is done, because until those who race into danger for us are really covered and really looked after, our work in this legislature has only just begun. Thank you.